Greetings to everyone and welcome to today's internal awareness session.
This presentation highlights the Al Masood Energy HSE Register's awareness and management, serves as a comprehensive guide to managing your compliance tools. The contents of this presentation include the following topics: awareness objectives and deliverables, introduction and why registers matter, Al Masood Energy's 4 registers overview, Register 1, HSE risk and opportunity, Register 2, environmental impact aspect, Register 3, legal requirements, Register 4, compliance evaluation, integration and governance, best practices, practical application, and key takeaways and action items. The awareness objectives focus on ensuring employees understand the purpose, structure, and proper use of each Al Masood Energy register, including the risk, environmental, legal, and compliance registers. They also emphasize applying risk rating methodologies and environmental aspect impact evaluations consistently across operations. In addition, the objectives include accurately mapping legal requirements to operational activities and maintaining evidence of compliance. Finally, they aim to ensure that compliance status is effectively monitored and that corrective actions are implemented promptly to address and close any identified gaps. The awareness deliverables include several key outcomes from the training and implementation of Al Masood Energy registers. These include knowledge acquisition, where employees learn to understand and distinguish between the 4 AME registers. It also includes practical selection, which ensures employees gain practical knowledge on assigning and updating register responsibilities according to their department or function. Another deliverable is documentation and records, which provides formal acknowledgement of training completion and understanding of the AME registers. In addition, digital reporting ensures employees are able to use the ERP or QR system to review register compliance requirements efficiently. Finally, the deliverables include a commitment to compliance, reinforcing the responsibility to maintain these registers as living documents to ensure continuous compliance and improvement. Al Masood Energy registers are critical management tools that support proactive compliance and operational control. They function as primary control tools, helping identify hazards early and prevent incidents before they occur. The registers also enable actionable conversion by translating complex legal and regulatory requirements into clear operational controls and auditable evidence. Through proactive management, they support forward-looking identification and management of risks, environmental aspects, and legal obligations rather than relying on reactive responses. These registers are also a mandatory requirement for maintaining compliance with international standards such as ISO 14001 and ISO 45001, as well as ADPHC-aligned ADASH-SF regulations. Additionally, they contribute to strengthening the organization's safety culture, supporting the zero-harm philosophy by providing a structured framework for monitoring, control, and assurance. The Al Masood Energy 4 register system is designed to manage risk, environmental aspects, legal obligations, and compliance assurance in an integrated manner. Under risk and impact identification, the system includes the HSE Risk and Opportunity Register, Reg 01, which identifies hazards, consequences, probability, and control measures across operational, sales, logistics, and HR activities, and the Environmental Impact Aspect Register, Reg 02, which identifies environmental aspects of activities and their potential impacts while defining mitigation measures for pollution prevention, resource management, and climate considerations. Under legal and compliance assurance, the system includes the Legal Requirements Register, Reg 03, which serves as a database of applicable UAE and Abu Dhabi laws and regulatory requirements from authorities such as ADPHC, EAD, and more mapped to operational activities, and the Compliance Evaluation Register, Reg 04, which verifies compliance with these obligations by documenting evidence, audit findings, and compliance status, identifying whether requirements are complied with or not. Section 01 covers the HSE Risk and Opportunity Register, AME HSE Reg 01, which addresses the identification and management of risks and opportunities across multiple organizational functions. The scope of this register includes areas such as Environmental Management System, EMS, Health, Safety and Environment, HSE, Sales, Operations, Logistics, Purchasing, Data Security, and Human Resources. The register ensures that potential hazards, operational risks, and improvement opportunities are systematically identified and managed across these departments. Its status reflects that it is maintained in accordance with the latest reviewed and revised version, ensuring it remains updated and aligned with current operational and regulatory requirements. The Reg 01 HSE Risk and Opportunity Register is critical because it forms the foundation of Al Masood Energy's proactive HSE management system. It supports proactive risk management by identifying and controlling HSE and business risks before they lead to incidents, shifting the approach from reactive response to preventive hazard control. The register also helps capture opportunities by systematically identifying areas that can improve safety performance, environmental sustainability, and operational efficiency. In addition, it ensures a consistent methodology by applying a uniform and auditable risk assessment approach based on probability and consequence across all departments and locations. Finally, it helps drive actions and ownership by assigning clear responsibilities and timelines for mitigation measures, ensuring accountability and supporting continuous improvement in the organization's safety culture. The risk categories in Reg 01 cover both core business and HSE-related risks as well as operational support functions across Al Masood Energy. Under core business and HSE risks, the categories include environmental management system (EMS), risks such as environmental pollution, waste management issues, emissions, and resource depletion, HSE, health, safety and environment, risks including operational hazards like lifting operations, pressure testing, working at height, jetty operations, and chemical handling, and sales and business development risks related to tendering, contractual clauses, pricing errors, and client payment terms. Under support functions and operations, the categories include operations, which covers project planning, resource allocation, job handover, and execution delays, logistics, involving shipment delays, customs clearance, fleet management, and driver safety, purchase or procurement, including supplier reliability, product specifications, delivery timelines, and vendor approvals, data and information security, which addresses risks such as data breaches, cyber threats, system outages, and information confidentiality, and human resources, HR, risks such as recruitment challenges, onboarding issues, training gaps, competency assurance, and employee retention. The risk assessment methodology follows a structured 5-step process to systematically identify, evaluate, and control risks across operations. The first step is identify hazard or risk, where hazards, risks, or potential opportunities are identified across all operational areas. The second step is assess impact, which involves evaluating the potential consequences using a defined scale and determining the probability of occurrence based on established criteria. The third step is determine rating, where the overall risk level, such as low, medium, or high, is calculated using the standard risk matrix. The fourth step is define controls, where mitigation plans are developed, responsible owners are assigned, and implementation deadlines are established. The final step is monitor and review, which requires regularly reviewing the risk post-implementation and continuously monitoring the effectiveness of the control measures to ensure ongoing improvement and risk reduction. The risk rating system, 5x5, is used to evaluate and prioritize risks by combining consequence, severity, and probability, likelihood, using a standard risk matrix. The consequence scale, 1 to 5, measures the impact of an incident, ranging from 1, insignificant, no injury or low impact, 2, minor, first aid or minor damage, 3, moderate, medical treatment or lost time injury, 4, major, permanent disability or major damage, to 5, severe, fatality or catastrophic impact. The probability scale, i.e., measures the likelihood of occurrence, where a rare means the event is unlikely to occur. B, unlikely means it could occur at some time. C, possible means it might occur occasionally. D, likely means it will probably occur. And E, almost certain means it is expected to occur. By combining these two factors, risks are classified into low, L, medium, M, or high, H, levels within the matrix. For example, a 4D rating, high, may represent a welding hazard with major consequences and likely occurrence before controls, while after implementing controls such as local exhaust ventilation, the rating may reduce to 2B, low. Both the initial and residual risk ratings must be documented in the Reg 01 HSE Risk and Opportunity Register for proper monitoring and management. Examples of identified risks in the Reg 01 operational risk profile demonstrate how hazards are assessed using the 5x5 risk matrix by comparing pre-control and post-control risk ratings. For welding and oxyacetylene activities, hazards include fumes, gases, radiant energy, slag, and fire potential, with the risk reduced from 4D to 2B after implementing controls. Hazardous waste management involves risks such as improper handling or disposal, soil contamination, and fire hazards, with ratings reduced from 4D to 2B after mitigation measures. Chemical storage presents hazards including spills, fire, environmental damage, and human exposure, with risk reduced from 5C to 1A after controls are applied. Vehicle movement risks include collisions, poor visibility due to dust or fog, driver fatigue, and overloading, with risk lowered from 5E to 1A following safety controls. Lifting operations involve hazards such as dropped objects, equipment failure, and unauthorized entry, with risk reduced from 4D to 1A. Pressure testing hazards include energy release, valve failure, and hose rupture, also reduced from 4D to 1A. Jetty operations involve working near water, uneven surfaces, and crane-related hazards, with risk reduced from 5C to 2B. Pandemic controls address hazards such as virus transmission, contaminated PP, and social distancing issues, with risk reduced from 5C to 2C. Finally, fleet maintenance hazards include chemical usage, slips or trips, and defective tools, with risk reduced from 4C to 1A after proper safety measures are implemented. Opportunities identification goes beyond risk mitigation by recognizing positive initiatives that can enhance safety, efficiency, and sustainability across the organization. One opportunity is ergonomics and productivity improvement, which focuses on enhancing workplace design in both office and shop floor environments to prevent musculoskeletal disorders, reduce fatigue, and improve employee comfort and productivity. Another opportunity is IVMS journey optimization, where data from in-vehicle monitoring systems is used to optimize driving routes and driver behavior, helping reduce fuel consumption, lower vehicle emissions, and improve fleet safety. Comprehensive recycling programs also represent an opportunity by implementing segregated waste streams for materials such as paper, metal scrap, waste oils, and batteries, which helps reduce landfill impact, lower disposal costs, and support circular economy practices. Additionally, targeted training refreshers can be developed using incident data and audit findings to address recurring issues, strengthen employee competency, reduce incident recurrence, and minimize operational downtime. Mitigation measures and action plans define the required controls identified in Reg 01 to reduce risk levels and ensure safe operations. These controls include implementing Permit to Work, PTW, and Toolbox Talk, TBT, systems to ensure high-risk activities are properly authorized and communicated. A preventive maintenance program must also be followed to maintain vehicles, machinery, and safety systems according to scheduled maintenance plans. Traffic management controls are required to enforce speed limits, utilize banksmen when necessary, and monitor fleet vehicles through IVMS systems. In addition, organizations must conduct regular emergency drills and response exercises, such as fire, spill, and medical emergency drills, according to the annual schedule. Equipment safety is maintained through the use of certified equipment and color-coded lifting gear, ensuring that only approved third-party certified equipment is used. Proper spill kits and safety data sheets, SDS, must be available at all chemical usage points to ensure readiness for environmental incidents. Heat stress and welfare controls must also be implemented, including midday break protocols, hydration stations, and monitoring of thermal work limits. Finally, action ownership and closure must be clearly defined by assigning responsible persons for each mitigation action and verifying effectiveness before closing the action in the register. A critical requirement is that all mitigation actions must have a specific owner and a realistic due date recorded in Reg 01 to ensure accountability and timely implementation. Section 02 covers the Environmental Impact Aspect Register, AMEHSE Reg 02, which focuses on identifying and managing environmental aspects related to Al Masood Energy's activities and operations. The scope of this register includes identifying activities, environmental aspects, potential impacts, and mitigation measures across all AME sites and operational areas. It ensures that environmental risks such as emissions, waste generation, resource consumption, and pollution are systematically identified and controlled through appropriate mitigation actions. The register is maintained in accordance with the latest reviewed and revised version, ensuring that environmental management practices remain current and aligned with regulatory and organizational requirements. The Reg 02 Environmental Impact Aspect Register is designed to support effective environmental impact management by identifying, evaluating, and controlling the organization's environmental footprint. It focuses on aspect and impact identification, where environmental aspects such as inputs and outputs from activities are systematically identified and their potential impacts on air, water, soil, and natural resources are evaluated under normal, abnormal, and emergency conditions. The register also establishes operational controls, defining specific mitigation measures such as bunding, spill kits, and waste segregation to prevent pollution and promote sustainable resource use. It provides comprehensive coverage across all Al Masood Energy operations, including workshops, chemical storage areas, jetty operations, open yards, and corporate offices. In addition, the register supports compliance and certification by aligning environmental management practices with ISO 14001:2015 requirements and ensuring adherence to regulatory obligations from authorities such as the Environment Agency, Abu Dhabi, EADI, and Abu Dhabi Public Health Center, ADPHC. The aspects identification process follows a structured 5-step approach to systematically identify and manage environmental aspects across operations. The first step is mapping activities, where operational activities are identified and categorized by specific locations or sections such as workshops, jetties, or yards. The second step is identifying aspects, which involves analyzing inputs and outputs such as resources used, emissions generated, and waste produced to determine potential environmental aspects. The third step is linking aspects to impacts, where these aspects are connected to possible environmental effects such as impacts on air quality, water, soil, noise levels, waste generation, and climate change. The fourth step is determining controls, where the significance of each aspect is assessed and appropriate operational controls or mitigation measures are defined to manage environmental risks. The final step is recording and reviewing, where all identified aspects and controls are documented in the register, communicated to relevant teams, and periodically reviewed to ensure effectiveness and continuous improvement. The impact assessment process is used to evaluate the environmental significance of identified aspects and determine the necessary control measures. The process begins with evaluation criteria, where impacts are assessed based on factors such as frequency of occurrence, severity of environmental damage, applicable legal requirements, and stakeholder concerns including community or client expectations. The next step considers operational conditions, where environmental aspects are evaluated under 3 different scenarios: normal operations, abnormal conditions such as shutdowns, maintenance, or startups, and emergency situations such as spills, accidents, or system failures. After this evaluation, significance determination is carried out by calculating scores to prioritize environmental impacts, where high significance aspects require immediate operational controls, reduction objectives, and continuous monitoring. Finally, the control hierarchy is applied to manage the impacts effectively, prioritizing elimination of the hazard, followed by substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls, and the use of personal protective equipment, ensuring that pollution prevention measures are addressed at the source whenever possible. The key activities covered within the Environmental Impact Aspect Register include a range of operational, maintenance, and support functions across Al Masood Energy. Under operational and maintenance activities, these include painting operations on metals, floors, and equipment, materials handling involving solid, liquid, and gaseous substances, chemical handling and storage, diesel fuel bunkering and storage, handling of oils, grease, degreasers, and batteries, plant and equipment maintenance, and waste management activities such as waste segregation and disposal. Under support and specialized services, the activities include facilities and pantry room operations, energy use and consumables, contractors' works in vehicle maintenance, CNC and lathe machine operations, welding operations and hydrotesting, compressor maintenance, and specialized operations such as remote well ignition and gel mixing, RWIS. These activities are evaluated to identify environmental aspects and potential impacts to ensure proper environmental management and compliance. Mitigation actions and controls identified in Reg 02 are implemented to prevent pollution and minimize environmental impact across Al Masood energy operations. These environmental controls include proper containment and drainage systems, such as bunds, oil traps, sumps, and closed drainage connected to approved systems for liquid storage areas. Spill prevention measures are also required, ensuring spill kits are readily available and drip trays are used under equipment and connections. Resource conservation practices include waste segregation and recycling bins, the use of IVMS monitoring for fleet efficiency, and shutdown policies to reduce unnecessary energy consumption. Environmental monitoring activities such as noise monitoring, reuse of test water where applicable, and stack emission checks are also conducted. In addition, climate considerations are incorporated by monitoring extreme weather conditions and integrating climate-related risks into emergency planning. Further controls include chemical management, ensuring safety data sheets are available, chemicals are properly labeled, and flammable materials are stored in appropriate cabinets or lockable areas. Effective waste management practices are maintained through waste manifests and the use of CWM-approved third-party waste service providers. Operational controls such as permit-to-work systems for hot work and local exhaust ventilation for welding activities help reduce emissions and hazards. Measures for water and soil protection ensure that no contaminated discharge reaches the ground and that contaminated soil is treated according to regulatory requirements. Additionally, contractor oversight ensures that all contractors comply with AME environmental controls and waste management procedures. A key requirement is that all controls must be verified during site inspections and documented through updates in the Reg 02 register. Climate change considerations are integrated into operational planning and risk management to strengthen environmental resilience. This includes enhanced monitoring of heat and worker health, such as tracking heat stress indices and humidity levels and implementing stricter work rest cycles during extreme temperatures to protect the workforce. Organizations must also prepare for extreme weather impacts, including sandstorms, high winds, and heavy rainfall that may disrupt logistics, operations, and site accessibility. Emergency preparedness is strengthened by updating emergency response plans to address flooding scenarios, storm surges at coastal facilities, and infrastructure resilience assessments. In addition, spill risk escalation is considered during severe weather conditions by reinforcing secondary containment systems and ensuring weatherproof storage for hazardous materials. Compliance with regulatory expectations is maintained by aligning with evolving ISO 14001 requirements and local stakeholder expectations related to climate adaptation and carbon footprint reporting. Finally, organizations monitor resource and emission trends by tracking resource consumption efficiency and emission levels to identify reduction opportunities and support broader sustainability objectives. Section 03 covers the Legal Requirements Register, AME/HSE Reg 03, which documents all applicable legal and regulatory obligations relevant to Al Masood Energy's operations. The scope of this register includes laws, regulations, competent authorities, regulatory obligations, operational areas affected, and required records or evidence of compliance. It serves as a structured reference to ensure that all applicable HSE and environmental legal requirements are identified, monitored, and integrated into operational practices. The register is maintained in accordance with the latest reviewed and revised version, ensuring that legal obligations remain updated and aligned with current regulatory requirements and authority guidelines. The Reg 03 Legal Requirements Register serves as the regulatory backbone of the HSE management system by translating complex legal obligations into practical compliance measures. Its purpose begins with identifying legal requirements, where all applicable UAE federal laws, Abu Dhabi decrees, ministerial orders, and relevant international standards such as ISO are systematically identified and reviewed to ensure they apply to Al Masood Energy's operations. The next step involves translating these requirements into operational controls, converting legal text into clear obligations and site-specific controls such as permits, operational limits, personal protective equipment requirements, and working hour regulations for relevant departments and locations. The register also establishes evidence and review mechanisms, ensuring that auditable records are maintained to demonstrate compliance and that periodic reviews are conducted to keep the register updated with evolving regulations. Finally, it forms the basis for evaluation, acting as the reference baseline for the Compliance Evaluation Register, Reg 04, which measures and verifies the organization's compliance performance against the identified legal requirements. The Reg 03 primary legal framework outlines key UAE federal and Abu Dhabi regulatory requirements that Al Masood Energy must comply with as part of its HSE and operational obligations. These include Decree No. 42 of 2009 and Abu Dhabi EHSMS regulatory framework, overseen by ADPHC, which requires organizations to develop and implement an environmental, health and safety management system and comply with the DASH-SF reporting requirements. Federal Law No. 24 of 1999 and Ministerial Decree December 2006, regulated by the Environment Agency, Abu Dhabi, EAD, focuses on environmental protection, air pollution control, and environmental impact assessment, EIA. Cabinet Resolution No. 39 of 2021 on Integrated Waste Management, overseen by MOZAE, requires proper waste segregation, color-coded containers, and disposal through approved providers. ADCD regulations in Cabinet Resolution No. 24 of 2012 require fire protection systems, Hassantuck subscription, and effective emergency response measures. Federal Law No. 33 of 2021 on employment relations, governed by MORE, regulates employment contracts, wage protection, equal pay, and employee leave entitlements, while Ministerial Resolution No. 44 of 2022 establishes occupational health and safety standards and labor accommodation requirements. SEMA 71,000-2016, the National OHS and Crisis Management Standard, addresses business continuity, risk management, and emergency response integration. Amiri Decree June 2006 on port security, regulated by Abu Dhabi Ports, requires port security management systems in compliance with the Terminal Operator Licensing System, TOLIS. UAE Federal Law No. 21 of 1995 on traffic, governed by UAE traffic authorities, establishes road safety rules, vehicle management, and driver licensing requirements. Lastly, Federal Decree Law No. 34 of 2021 on cybercrimes, regulated by the Telecommunications and Digital Government Regulatory Authority, TRA, focuses on data protection, cybersecurity, and prevention of cyber-related offenses. This list represents a summary of key regulations, while the Reg 03 register contains a comprehensive list of legal obligations that must be reviewed semi-annually or whenever regulatory updates occur. The competent authorities responsible for regulating and overseeing compliance with HSE, environmental, labor, and operational requirements are divided into core regulatory bodies and specialized agencies. The core regulatory bodies include the Abu Dhabi Public Health Center, ADPHC, under the DASH-SF Framework for Occupational Safety and Health Management, the Environment Agency, Abu Dhabi, EAD, and the Center for Waste Management for Environmental Protection and Waste Management Regulations, the Ministry of Human Resources and Emiratization, MORE, for Labor Laws and Workforce Regulations, the Ministry of Health and Prevention, MOHAP, for Occupational Health Services and Preventive Healthcare. Guidance, and ESMA/ADCD for standardization, metrology, and civil defense requirements. In addition, several specialized agencies provide regulatory oversight in specific sectors. These include the Telecommunications and Digital Government Regulatory Authority, TRA, for telecommunications and digital governance, the Ministry of Economy, MO, for intellectual property and copyright matters, the National Emergency Crisis and Disaster Management Authority, NCEMA, for National Emergency Management and Business Continuity Standards, Abu Dhabi Ports for Port Security and Terminal Operations Regulation, and the Department of Health, DOE, for Public Health Regulations and Pandemic-Related Guidance. Together, these authorities ensure that organizations operate in compliance with UAE federal and Abu Dhabi local regulations across multiple operational and safety domains. Compliance obligations and their application define the key operational areas where legal and regulatory requirements must be implemented and monitored. Workplace EHS management requires the implementation of A-SF compliance systems, including risk assessments, incident reporting, and safety performance monitoring across all facilities. Environmental protection obligations require compliance with environmental permits, regular monitoring of air, noise, and water, and maintaining emissions within permitted limits. Waste and hazardous materials management involves executing approved waste management plans, ensuring proper handling of hazardous materials, and securing necessary waste transport permits. Labor accommodation must comply with more standards related to worker housing, welfare facilities, and hygiene requirements. Additional compliance areas include summer work and heat safety, which requires strict adherence to midday work prohibition rules and heat stress management programs during summer months. Fire and life safety obligations require maintaining civil defense approvals, ensuring functional fire protection systems, and maintaining an active Hassantuck monitoring connection. Road traffic compliance includes adherence to UAE traffic laws, vehicle registration requirements, driver licensing, and transportation safety regulations. Finally, contractual requirements ensure that project operations comply with specific client HSE obligations, project standards, and contractual compliance deliverables. The Records Required and Updates section highlights the auditable evidence needed to demonstrate compliance under the Reg 03 Legal Requirements Framework. These records include documentation related to the EHS management system, such as approved EHSMS documents, safety performance reports, and incident investigation records in accordance with the A-SF requirements. For waste management, organizations must maintain approved waste management plans, WMP, waste manifests, recycling documentation, and hazardous waste disposal certificates. Labor and accommodation records must include accommodation permits, inspection reports, and welfare facility maintenance records aligned with more standards. In addition, fire and safety system records include Hassantuck connection certificates, fire system maintenance logs, and emergency drill evaluation reports. Environmental compliance also requires environmental monitoring records, including reports on ambient air quality, stack emissions, and occupational noise monitoring conducted by approved third-party agencies. Inspection and testing records must include third-party inspection certificates for lifting equipment, pressure vessels, and boilers, along with internal inspection checklists. HR and personnel records should include Wages Protection System, WPS, documentation, employee medical records, training matrices, and disciplinary records. Finally, technology and transport records include IVMS monitoring data for fleet management, IT security policies, and cybersecurity awareness records. The Reg 03 register currently lists 42 reference legal items, which must be reviewed at least semi-annually or whenever regulatory changes occur to ensure continuous compliance. Section 04 covers the Compliance Evaluation Register, AME-HSE Reg 04, which is used to assess and verify the organization's compliance with the legal and regulatory obligations identified in Reg 03. The scope of this register includes evaluating compliance against the listed legal requirements, tracking the current compliance status, and verifying the supporting evidence that demonstrates adherence to those obligations. It serves as a monitoring tool to ensure that regulatory requirements are consistently implemented and maintained across operations. The register is maintained in accordance with the latest reviewed and revised version, ensuring that compliance evaluations remain current, accurate, and aligned with updated legal and regulatory requirements. This slide explains the purpose and compliance tracking approach of Reg 04, Compliance Evaluation Register, within the Al Masood Energy HSE Management System. The Reg 04 register is used to evaluate how effectively the organization complies with the legal obligations identified in the Legal Requirements Register, Reg 03. It begins with systematic evaluation, where each legal obligation is reviewed line by line and assessed against actual operational practices and site conditions to verify whether the requirement is being implemented. The results are then documented through recording status, where each obligation is clearly marked as complied or not complied, providing a transparent overview of the organization's legal compliance status. To support this evaluation, the register requires capturing objective evidence, such as permits, inspection reports, test certificates, training records, and other documentation that demonstrates compliance. If any requirement is identified as not complied, the system records the gap and assigns responsibilities, including defining a corrective action plan, CAP, and designating a responsible person to implement and close the action. This ensures that compliance issues are tracked, addressed, and resolved in a structured and accountable manner. The compliance evaluation methodology used for Reg 04 systematically assesses whether legal and regulatory obligations are being implemented within Al-Masood Energy operations. The process begins with mapping requirements, where each legal obligation identified in the Legal Requirements Register, Reg 03, is linked to the relevant operational activities, departments, and locations. Next is identifying evidence, which involves determining the documents and records required to prove compliance, such as permits, inspection reports, certifications, training records, and assigned responsible owners. The third step is verifying implementation, where the organization confirms that the requirements are actually being applied in practice through internal audits, site inspections, and review of operational records. After verification, the results are documented in the record finding stage, where each requirement is marked as complied or not complied, and any gaps identified trigger the initiation of a corrective action plan, CAPA. Finally, the process concludes with close and update, where corrective actions are re-verified, CAPAs are formally closed once the issue is resolved, and the compliance register is updated along with relevant performance indicators and tracking records. This structured methodology ensures continuous monitoring and improvement of legal compliance across the organization. The compliance status monitoring is maintained to ensure the integrity and sustainability of regulatory compliance within Al-Masood Energy. Compliance monitoring begins with establishing clear monitoring periodicity, where routine evaluations are conducted through monthly checks, quarterly reviews, and annual audits aligned with legal and regulatory requirements. This structured schedule ensures that compliance obligations remain actively monitored and continuously verified rather than treated as a one-time assessment. Special attention is given to high-priority focus areas, which include critical regulatory frameworks and authorities such as ADASH-SF, Environment Agency Abu Dhabi, EAE, permits, Abu Dhabi Civil Defense, ADCD, more regulations, traffic regulations, cyber and information protection requirements, and SEMA standards. These areas require heightened oversight due to their operational and regulatory significance. Another important aspect is maintaining evidence currency. Even when a requirement is marked as complied, supporting documentation such as permits, inspection reports, certificates, and records must remain valid and up to date. Expired documents or outdated records can invalidate compliance status. Finally, the system incorporates re-evaluation triggers, where compliance reviews are automatically initiated when significant changes occur. These triggers include regulatory updates, operational incidents, audit findings, or process modifications, ensuring that compliance registers remain accurate and reflective of current operational and legal conditions. This slide explains the documentation and verification requirements needed to demonstrate regulatory compliance under Reg 04, Compliance Evaluation Register, within Al-Masood Energy. A key requirement is maintaining auditable evidence records, including permits, incident reports, waste manifests, training records, and inspection certificates. These documents serve as proof that legal and regulatory obligations are being implemented and maintained. In addition, third-party verification, TPI, is required for critical systems and equipment such as lifting equipment, pressure vessels, and other regulated assets to ensure that certifications remain valid and compliant with regulatory standards. The register also requires maintaining WPS and labor-related records, ensuring that wage protection system documentation and labor accommodation permits are current and aligned with more requirements. Compliance performance is further monitored through HSE performance KPIs, which track leading and lagging indicators, audit results, and corrective action closure rates to measure overall compliance effectiveness. To ensure accessibility and traceability, all compliance evidence should be linked to the ERP document system, allowing easy retrieval and monitoring of records. Strong version control and retention management must also be applied to ensure that documents are updated, controlled, and retained according to legal retention periods. Finally, compliance documentation is validated through internal audit verification, where independent reviews confirm the accuracy of compliance status and supporting evidence. The results are then reviewed through the management review process, where senior management evaluates documentation status, compliance gaps, and improvement actions as part of the organization's governance and continual improvement framework. How the 4 AME HSE registers work together as an integrated system within the Al-Masood Energy EHSMS framework. The system is divided into two main streams: regulatory and compliance and operational risk management. In the regulatory and compliance stream, the process starts with Reg 03, Legal Requirements Register, which identifies all applicable laws, regulations, and authority obligations that the organization must follow. This is then linked to Reg 04, Compliance Evaluation Register, where the organization verifies whether those legal obligations are actually implemented and supported by valid evidence, ensuring that compliance can be demonstrated during audits and inspections. In the operational risk stream, the process begins with Reg 01, HSE Risk and Opportunity Register, which identifies operational risks that could harm people, assets, or the business, as well as opportunities to improve performance. These activities are connected to Reg 02, Environmental Impact Aspect Register, which focuses specifically on how operations impact the environment and what controls are required to prevent pollution and ensure sustainability. Together, these four registers integrate into the Al-Masood Energy EHSMS, where they support key management functions such as EHSMS manual processes, continual improvement through the PDCA cycle, updates to training and operational controls, and readiness for internal and external audits. This integrated approach ensures that risks are controlled, environmental impacts are managed, legal obligations are met, and the organization maintains a strong compliance and safety culture. This slide explains the governance structure and responsibilities for managing the 4 HSE registers within Al-Masood Energy. Effective register management requires clear accountability across different organizational levels. Top management provides strategic leadership and commitment to HSE compliance. Their role includes allocating the necessary resources for maintaining the registers, setting HSE objectives and strategic targets, and reviewing overall compliance performance during management review meetings. The HSE manager and HSE team are responsible for the operational management of the system. They maintain and update the 4 registers regularly, conduct compliance evaluations and internal audits, provide awareness and training on register usage, and monitor regulatory changes to ensure the legal requirements register, Reg 03, remains current. Department heads and supervisors play a key role in implementing controls identified in the Risk and Opportunity Register, Reg 01, and the Environmental Impact Aspect Register, Reg 02. They also ensure that required evidence and documentation are available for compliance verification and that safety rules and operational controls are enforced within their teams. Employees and contractors are responsible for following operational procedures and safety controls, reporting hazards, incidents, and near misses, participating in risk assessments and toolbox talks, and stopping work if conditions are unsafe. The document control/ERP function supports the system by ensuring proper version control of registers, managing document access and distribution through the ERP system, maintaining retention of compliance records, and supporting the digital management of HSE forms. Finally, shared responsibility across the organization reinforces a strong safety culture. This includes promoting the zero harm culture, encouraging continuous improvement participation, and maintaining open communication regarding safety and compliance concerns. The review frequency and standards governing the maintenance of the 4 HSE registers at Al Masood Energy, ensuring that the system remains current, compliant, and aligned with international management standards. The risk and impact registers, Reg 01 and Reg 02, are reviewed at least semi-annually, and also whenever a post-incident investigation occurs or when there are significant changes in operations, equipment, processes, or personnel. This ensures that all hazards, risks, and environmental aspects remain accurately identified and controlled. The Legal Requirements Register, Reg 03, is also reviewed semi-annually, or immediately when new or amended legislation is issued. This allows the organization to quickly update compliance obligations and maintain alignment with UAE federal laws and Abu Dhabi regulatory requirements. The Compliance Evaluation Register, Reg 04, is typically evaluated annually, where the organization verifies its compliance status against the legal obligations listed in Reg 03. This review confirms that controls remain implemented and that supporting evidence is valid and available. All registers are integrated into the Al Masood Energy OHSNE Management System manual, ensuring they function as core operational tools within the management system rather than standalone documents. Finally, the entire framework aligns with international standards, specifically ISO 14001-2015, Environmental Management, and ISO 45001-2018, Occupational Health and Safety, including Amendment 1-2024 for climate action, as well as the ADASH-SF regulatory framework. This alignment ensures that the register system supports both regulatory compliance and international certification requirements. This slide outlines best practices for training and communication to ensure competence and awareness of the HSE register system at Al Masood Energy. The first component is induction and role-based training. All new employees receive mandatory induction training that introduces the fundamentals of the register system, including risk identification, environmental aspects, legal obligations, and compliance tracking. This is complemented by role-specific refresher training for supervisors, department heads, and process owners who are directly responsible for implementing and maintaining register controls. The second mechanism is toolbox talks and operational briefings. Regular toolbox talks are used to communicate updates such as new legal requirements, changes in risk control measures, lessons learned from incidents, and outcomes of compliance evaluations. These brief sessions ensure that operational teams remain aware of current HSE expectations. Another important communication channel is ERP notifications. The ERP system serves as the organization's digital communication platform for HSE register updates, assigned corrective actions, compliance deadlines, and document updates. This helps ensure that responsible personnel receive timely alerts and can track required actions efficiently. Finally, worker participation is emphasized as a key element of an effective HSE management system. Employees are actively involved in hazard identification, risk assessments, and control implementation. This participation is supported by a non-retaliation policy, encouraging workers to report hazards, safety concerns, or compliance issues without fear of negative consequences. Together, these mechanisms ensure that the register system is understood, communicated effectively, and consistently implemented across the organization. This slide explains how audit, verification, and continual improvement are applied to the Al Masood Energy HSE register system to ensure the effectiveness of the EHSMS. The process begins with planning internal audits, where scheduled audits are conducted across operational sites and departments to review the implementation of all 4 registers, risk and opportunity, environmental aspects, legal requirements, and compliance evaluation. These audits ensure that procedures, controls, and records are properly maintained. The next step is to verify effectiveness, where auditors evaluate whether the implemented controls and mitigation measures are actually working as intended. This includes reviewing supporting evidence, inspection records, operational practices, and compliance documentation. If gaps or nonconformities are identified, the organization will raise corrective and preventive actions, CAPA. These actions are assigned to responsible persons, tracked until closure, and verified to ensure the issue has been resolved and that residual risk levels are acceptable. Performance is then monitored through trend analysis of HSE KPIs, where audit results, compliance status, incident data, and corrective action closure rates are analyzed. These trends are presented during management review meetings to support decision-making and improvement planning. Finally, the process feeds into the PDCA, Plan to Do a Check Act, continual improvement cycle, where processes, procedures, and operational controls are updated based on audit findings and lessons learned. This ensures that the HSE management system continuously evolves and improves over time. This slide presents practical applications of the 4-register system through real operational case studies, demonstrating how the registers are used to identify risks, implement controls, and verify compliance. Case A, chemical storage leak risk. In this scenario, hazardous chemicals were stored on open ground, creating a risk of leakage and environmental contamination. Through the HSE Risk and Opportunity Register, Reg 01, the situation was assessed and rated 5C, severe consequence, possible likelihood, indicating a high risk level. Controls were then implemented, including the installation of bund walls, use of flammable cabinets, deployment of spill kits, and posting safety data sheets, SDS. The Environmental Impact Aspect Register, Reg 02, identified potential soil and water contamination aspects, ensuring environmental controls were included. After implementing these measures, the residual risk was reduced to 1A, low risk. Case B, midday work prohibition compliance. This case relates to compliance with more summer midday work regulations. The requirement was captured in the Legal Requirements Register, Reg 03, linking it to operational activities during the summer period. The organization implemented controls such as adjusted work schedules, hydration stations, and targeted toolbox talks, TBTs, to ensure worker safety and regulatory compliance. Evidence such as work schedules and TBT records was documented in the Compliance Evaluation Register, Reg 04. During audits, the requirement was verified and the status was recorded as complied. The slide also highlights common challenges, including missing evidence for closed actions, outdated register versions circulating within departments, and inconsistent application of controls by contractors. To address these challenges, several solutions were applied. These include ERP system linkage for centralized document control and access, regular refresher toolbox talks on register updates, and verification through random spot checks and supplier audits. These measures help strengthen compliance reliability and ensure consistent implementation of the register system across operations. Summary and key takeaways for effective management of the Al Masood Energy HSE Register System. The first key point is to use the right tool for the right purpose. Each register has a specific role within the system. Reg 01 is used for identifying and managing risks and opportunities. Reg 02 focuses on environmental aspects and impacts. Reg 03 captures applicable legal and regulatory requirements, and Reg 04 verifies compliance with those legal obligations. The second takeaway is to maintain currency and evidence. The registers are considered living documents, meaning they must be regularly updated to reflect operational changes, incidents, or regulatory updates. Every compliance status marked as complied must be supported by valid and verifiable evidence. Another critical element is to engage the team. Risk management and compliance are not the responsibility of one department alone. Workers and supervisors should actively participate in risk assessments, understand control measures, and report hazards or concerns promptly. Finally, the slide emphasizes the importance of early escalation. If a compliance gap or uncontrolled risk is identified and cannot be resolved at the operational level, it must be immediately escalated to the HSE department or line management to ensure timely corrective action. Overall, the message reinforces Al Masood Energy's commitment to a zero-harm culture, where strong register management supports safety, environmental protection, and regulatory compliance across all operations.
Let's continue working together to make a positive impact and drive excellence across our organization. Following this awareness session, please take a moment to complete the training evaluation questionnaire. Kindly submit your responses to HSE department for our records. Thank you.